the Around the NFL podcast. Otherwise known as Connie Fox and the Bozo Brigade.
From the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, it is Around the NFL. I'm Dan Haznus. I got heroes Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler, and yes, the aforementioned Colleen Wolfe, leader of the Bozo Brigade.
I'm a bozo too, so that's fine.
I like that. That's camaraderie. And
we're all bozos together.
it is Super Bowl week. It's official.
Yeah.
And we could say that again after Gregg went pretty deep in the hole financially.
Ooh.
Got many mentions on Twitter that we didn't catch everything, Eric. You might have to funnel those misses onto your account. Think that's only fair. We'll work that out financially from our Don't Say Super Bowl episode on Thursday. And it's been a very super rainy Sunday into now Monday. So I'm glad that everybody got here today from various points.
It was dicey.
I'm glad I'm not living in the hallway or control room right next to our studio, which is
They just built this place.
flooding right now.
Well, hold on.
Good.
So they literally opened
It's a
up
new one.
the floor outside the studio, and they're fishing around with a broom to mop up water and stuff. This is a low-level, hollowed-out Death Star about to be shot into
Oh, wow.
smithereens. This building has always felt slightly fraudulent, and it's being completely exposed. We're 3 levels below the roof, and it's leaking.
What
is happening here?
concerning. Also, the fact that water was coming through lights, and there were dumpster-sized containers catching the water and tarps everywhere.
Concerning.
Reminded me a little bit of the Titanic when the Titanic started to spring leaks, but I think that
Another monument to humanity that turned out to be a little
The most
fraudulent,
concerning
yeah.
element is that the very hardworking people that deal with maintenance and things here
Yeah, and they're working
seem
hard.
to have zero. They seem to be in awe of what is happening to the building.
But this is everywhere around.
Like when you
LA.
hit the iceberg, everybody's like,
Yeah,
we're
it's
fine.
Wait a minute, what? We never thought this would occur.
Unsinkable Molly Brown was like, we're cool. Let's go dancing.
So
Well, check you later.
there's
Get on the
mudslides
boat.
by me. There's a lot going
real
on
thing.
in LA.
The real thing.
Totally.
Everyone calmed down with, it's just raining. What a little rain, and the whole city shuts down. Yeah, because this area can't handle all of the water, gang.
Thank
So
you.
Yeah, well, I was
That-
accused of that. I think.
Well, that is, and my wife
That's
did the
literally
same
what
thing
Marc
on
said
Sunday.
before.
No, I said I looked out my window and it didn't seem to be that.
It does depend where you are. In some areas, it's totally fine.
Think about this. This is sobering. My pool is getting very close to overflowing.
the common man, right?
Yeah, your
Just think
common
about
man
that.
rankings
Down in the
overflowing,
rankings.
too.
Just think about that.
What happens if that happens, though? By the way,
Don't know. And that's
Well-
what we're dealing with here.
You should be draining your pool before a big storm, but
I don't know how to do that. Aquaman? I don't know how to do that.
Ka-choo. That's
All right. This is also hard to believe, but been 3 years since Chris Wesseling left us. This is the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. Chris was one of the founding members of this podcast and our good friend, and passed away from cancer 3 years ago. On this very day, it's still hard to believe, Gregg, that he's gone at all, and that 3 years have passed, and yet here we are.
It's a tough time of year. I think with the Super Bowl coming up every year when this date happens, but unlike a lot of people, we have these video recordings of our time with Wes, and not that the podcast was our only great times with Wes, but it is crazy to go back and to listen to those at times like this.
I have an idea. Well, it was kind of Gregg's idea, but
we'll take it as your own.
I would.
yes,
I think Wes would appreciate this.
this is fun because yes, it sucks that he's not with us, but it is great that we have these memories that we could listen to, and it is Super Bowl week, and it is Wes, from I guess it would have been about the 2014 Super Bowl, and the next 5 or 6 years after, it was the 4 of us doing all those shows together, and we are coming up on an anniversary. Is it the 10-year anniversary of this?
Well, this occurred after the 2014 season.
So this would be
yes.
9 years right now.
Yeah. So Chris famously had this. He was an avid softball player, both in at Tybee Island, where he lived before relocating to Los Angeles to take the NFL job, and then of course here in LA, where the Shield, the company softball team, went to 3 straight title games, winning 2 chips. Trophies are in my attic. Every year when I go up there to get the Christmas decorations, there they are, just staring right back at me. It's very nice. Makes me think of Chris also. And so Chris, there was a 2-part situation. One year on the podcast, he said it was something about the Raiders and how many wins they would get to, or something. He was very down on the Raiders, as I recall.
The Dennis Allen Raiders that he did not believe could get to 8 wins. And now that you mention it, that would have been our very first season as the Around the NFL podcast.
Makes sense.
That would have been the 2013 season. This Super Bowl is capping our second full season. That was Seahawks Patriots.
There you go. So Wes said if the Raiders reach that benchmark, he'll eat his own softball pants, and it came down to the wire. But he actually ended up winning that wager. He looked it right in the face and ended up not having it. Then he doubled down, Chris. And the following year, after your boy Johnny Manziel, Mark, enters the league as a first-round pick and all the hype around him, Wes said, "I again will eat my softball pants if Johnny Manziel is not the week 1 starter for the Cleveland Browns," which at the time, what Wes didn't know and what we didn't have clear idea about was like how much madness was going on behind the scenes with Manziel, and they end up going with Brian Hoyer to start that season. Anyway, so Wes loses the wager. Cut to the Super Bowl Media Center in, where would this have been? New Orleans.
No, Arizona.
And guess what? It was time to pay the piper. At that media center, I'll never forget it, they had a random, we didn't know it was going to be there, but a random hot dog stand in the middle of the media center. And it was a $20 hot dog. It was like a gourmet hot dog.
No, I thought our producer had to go find it out on the town. It was a true hunt.
It was
for this.
literally in the media center. It was a $20. What we needed to do was get the NFL to clear paying for the hot dog,
which was a chore back then.
Like, oh my God, they didn't even want us doing the podcast.
No.
It was like, now all of a sudden, here we go. They get the clearance. Here comes, I think it was like a 3-foot hot dog.
Yes.
It was in that realm.
And outrageous.
With all the
hefty
fixings.
hot dog.
So we decided the move would be to cut up the softball pants and sprinkle it over the dog. And Wes, because he was always a man that was good, for his word, ate up. Let's listen to a clip from that show.
We will find out. Will Chris Wesseling eat his softball pants?
First time I've ever had heartburn before I ate something.
Wesseling was seriously nervous earlier.
jitters.
We were doing some preparations behind the scene with the softball pants. Wes is getting a little nervous.
I'm a little
He should
nervous.
be. I mean, he's eating polyester, zipper, and other composite parts. So we're just get ready, Wes. It could be dangerous.
I'm
for you.
concerned for my friend. I'm just openly
You should be.
concerned.
Wes, softball pants. It's literally minutes away now. Where's your mind at?
I think of everything I've consumed this week.
Yeah.
Softball pants are not high on the list of most harmful things in my body.
That's really fair.
And he did, true to his word, he took a couple of bites. He took down the polyester. He took down the composite parts, some zipper. And then I remember about 87% of the hot dog left behind when we were like, do we throw it out? Does somebody else? We just walked away. And there's a photo, if you're watching on the Fast Channel, of Wes at the moment of truth. A million great memories with Wes. And that's, in terms of the Super Bowl, that one's at the top.
We had Connor Orr with us, and that was when they would do the Radio Row, where we were sitting up on a bigger set than they tend to have these days for our show. But there were like 60 to 70 people standing there watching with no context clues of what was happening other than Wes eating a 3-foot-long hot dog with composite parts and softball pants cloth on it.
Including Keith Haznus.
And my brother, yeah.
Oh.
Yep, they were right. If you look at that photo, if you bring it up again, that was
They're right there.
they're there. It's incredible. And the other fun part, and this was also part of the Wes experience, obviously, if anyone listens to the show, something like this, I would be hyper invested in and be excited about the bit. And I asked Wes like 10 times. I said, Wes, you got to make sure you bring the softball pants. Can't forget to bring them. We need the softball pants. And then what happens once we get to Arizona? I forgot them.
Oh, no.
That was a different version of Wes back then on some level.
I think that's a good segue, and we did eventually get them. But Greg, you pulled another clip too that connects a little bit to what you were saying, Mark.
The whole show is fun to listen to. It's much different. We're much more concise. Maybe we had to get out of there, but that show was under 35 minutes. We did like 4 segments. brought up to him because he suddenly was big on Dan Quinn, I believe, or maybe it was Patriots, and I was getting on him for falling in love basically with whatever team that he covered for the week. Then he suddenly thought like the people that team were the greatest things ever.
That's a fair point. I credit Pete Carroll because I think he made a lot of mistakes early in his coaching career. And I don't know how good of a person he was, but he seems like a more self-actualized individual who's learned from his mistakes.
Do you see a little of yourself in Pete Carroll?
No, I have never learned anything, and I'm not good at evolving. I wish I
I'm
was.
just saying, I'm like getting dizzy right now because Wes conceded a point.
Now, what you said, Mark, connects for me is that Wes, before he died, absolutely evolved. A lot of that went back to Lakeisha, in my mind, and what a transformational effect she had. But also, it's not just a person entering his life. Wes kind of made a concerted effort to evolve change. Not that Wes was bad, but it was different than the one that we knew before he got sick.
There were multiple Wes's, and I also think like that. So, Greg, like what that clip you just played was because that was the version of our show where I got tagged tracking the Patriots all week, and Wes had the Seahawks, and so. But there was a day we both went to Seattle, like a media session, and sat and talked to Dan Quinn for like 25 minutes, and like both just fell in love with Dan Quinn. So I think that's where that was coming from. It's like Dan Quinn. I know today it's like, oh, it's a bit of a boring hire by the Commander. It's like Dan Quinn dazzled in this like one-on-one, like hanging out with a couple of reporters, and Wes is not a hardcore journalist in terms of like a reporter person, and like he just fell for Dan Quinn's
you know what I learned
way.
listening to this, which I never would have remembered. Dan Quinn had read something Wes wrote and told him, "Oh, it's nice to meet you," and mentioned how he had read something.
Oh,
and so now I'm rooting for Dan Quinn now.
All right, yeah,
Go.
we're all back in. What a hire!
Yeah.
We love it.
when we were talking yesterday about things that we could potentially do for Wes today, the softball pants for me was like such a pivotal moment in like my friendship with you guys, how much I wanted to be friends with you guys. That was my first season at NFL, and I'll never forget when he ate his softball pants, and I remember specifically the zippers will just like stay with you talking about the zippers
Dan
and
talked
the
about the zippers for
polyester.
5 months.
And it never left my mind. It still lives in the recesses of my mind somehow. But it was like Win Wes's toaster, the softball pants episode, when Wes was in Tybee and he called in from the bar, or we called the bar, and he was
No,
there.
it wasn't. We always called him because part of the fun was tracking him down.
You'd hope to find him.
Because
Right.
you would obviously get him at the bar, Huckapoos, more often than not. But if you didn't get him at the bar, he was at the garage with Wayne and Rose.
Yes.
Like really one of those two spots
Yes.
specifically.
And he was in such his element. And in those early days, we were taping all of those like random segments for NFL Now, and I didn't get a chance to like truly see what Wes was until we would go and hang out off-site and things like that. But on those episodes, the Tybee episodes, he really was able to show all of the listeners like who he was, his true spirit, and it was so beautiful to see, and it was just so fun to be around him, and I just miss him so much.
Yeah, we all do. Like today I was thinking about like the best way we can honor him. Like he always, when there was a good time to be had anywhere he was going to make sure he had it. So I think that's the best way to try to honor him today.
Yes.
Do that.
Yes. I was on this Pro Football Ireland did a live show last week, and they were at a bar. And as often as the case, I was in on Zooms, and I was talking to a bunch of Irish people holding Guinnesses. And always get asked about Wes. Love getting asked about Wes. And he said, "What is it that you remember about Wes?" And that's what I thought of. It was like, I am personally someone who likes to keep a smaller, tighter circle. I have people that I'm comfortable with. I have people that I like, which all you guys are included in that group, as was Wes and Lakeisha.
Yeah.
And
I just got in.
Wes was the opposite. Wes was like the more the merrier.
Always.
And he was always comfortable, no matter the gathering. So obviously, to lose somebody like that is unbelievable. You never kind of get over it because he was like one of those 1 in a million type people. And then when you have that person enter your life and then go, the immense nature of the loss never really dissipates, but getting to talk about him this way is it helps.
I'll never forget when I first started listening to the ATN podcast. I was on the flight to take the job to move out here to LA. And I started just like downloading as many NFL podcasts as possible. And I was just like blew through all of your episodes. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, Dan is going to be probably the easiest one to become friends with. And then I wasn't sure where Mark and Gregg fell yet, but I thought that Wes was going to be the most difficult one to win over. And it could not have been more of the opposite when I met you guys.
Well, and we had a truly, if you write a book about the whole thing, a fortuitous encounter at the Whaler, where it was just a random off-season Sunday, and I was out with Wes, which, you know, the minute football would end, I know he was the hardcore football head, and we miss his analysis, but like when the football season would end, Wes would make a declarative statement of like, football, check you later for a little bit of time. Go. And he loved to go looking around LA for something that felt like Tybee Island. And the Whaler, which was an upstairs bar overlooking the sea, felt close to it. And we were out there having beers, and you were there with Kristen, your friend, and your dad and your mom. And we didn't really know you at all. We had never hung out. And I think that started this idea of like, wait a minute, we should all be friends. And like a week or two later, Dan was there, Gregg was there, like everyone was there, and it just like grew from that moment. And Wes, I think, showed you how easy it was.
Oh my God.
Like there's the Wes, the football person that everyone listened to, and then there's the Wes, the hangout person that's like, wait a minute, this is a whole different universe.
Wes and my mom were like thick as thieves immediately. My mom was just like crushing Pete Carroll for some reason, hated him, and Wes absolutely loved that.
I guess I kind of forgot about the Carroll Wesseling beef, but now this has all been brought back up. And speaking of Wes, program note, we had been taping these over the course of the season, and now they're starting to roll out on NFL Plus, where we watch each of the last 5 Super Bowls leading up to, of course, this upcoming Sunday's Super Bowl 58. Well, too many Roman numerals.
Well, it's enough already. We're done with Roman numerals.
I've talked to a bunch. So many people agree with your Roman numeral.
Thank you.
We're done with it.
Yeah.
We're not gonna.
Yeah, we don't.
Well, the NFL's not done.
We'll lead it though.
So.
Oh.
If the NFL's not done with it, we're not done with it.
We're back
Unfortunately.
We're back in on Roman numerals.
But we go through, each of the last 5 Super Bowls. You know, like we said, 3 years ago today, we lost Wes. That also happened to be 2 days before the Chiefs-Bucks Super Bowl that year. So when we go through that game, you'll see that on NFL Plus if you want to check it out. We actually talk about Wes. We play some a clip that Lakeisha produced about the loss and the life that they shared together. So check that out on NFL Plus. All right, what do we got going on today? Yes, the Super Bowl is this week, and it's a 2 week ramp up. We don't need 2 weeks, like in terms of breaking down the game. The game is the game. There are teams that we've been watching all season long. We got the deep dive all through the playoffs. The 2 weeks is really about the NFL as the machine getting the Death Star in place in Las Vegas. So I don't feel bad if this show, for instance, doesn't hit it too hard, because we're going to Vegas on Wednesday. And just so everyone knows, we're going to have a big lineup of 3 shows at Radio Row with a bunch of great guests. And we're going to continue to dig into the game. A little later today, we're going to get Brian Baldinger, the great Baldy, on the
Baldy?
show. Yes, and we're going to start digging into the game. But before that, we only have a finite amount of time with Colleen, because Connie Fox, listen, she's one of the faces of the network. And the fact that we booked her today, the clock's already ticking, as a matter of fact. So why don't we move some things around and get into our first big subject, which is something we've teased for a while, the top 10 radio calls of the 2023-24 season. Now, this is a big one for.
I'm getting rid of hyphens too. This is 23. This is 23. I don't care.
But it's not. It's like we're deep into 24
We
now.
have to just make a choice.
Well, yeah.
Eric, the producer, who does great work. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you doing?
Eric.
Are you packed
Eric.
yet? Are you packed for Vegas yet?
Well, no. I'm worrying about my pool swallowing up the rest of my house right now, so that's kind of set me back a little bit.
I'm driving, so I just throw it in the back of a car and
I'm leaving tonight.
Park it underneath the hotel, in the basement underneath the hotel.
That's a long drive for the Cess dog, and it's got me a little nervous, I gotta say.
I was partially surprised, but Marc's an outlier. So when I heard about this, I was like, I could see it happening.
I think there's some fair concern on the part of the league, but I don't think they should be. I don't understand where they're coming from.
There's meetings.
Eric, so the Don't Say Super Bowl show notwithstanding.
I guess I messed up.
You've
I
done
did see some
tremendous
comments
work
too, but yeah, I guess I
all
totally
week.
blew it. But
If you could tally up, because I still have to share what we're going to do with that slush fund, but I want to wait for some Randy Chavez to be here.
Right.
He's not here today. We ask you all season to collect the calls that we hear in real time on Sundays that really resonate with us and connect. And we did took some time and made our own list, and then it was up to Eric, the producer, to put it together in a top 10 calls of the 2023 season. So let's get into it. Colleen, what do you think?
I'm ready for it. I feel like there's a lot of pressure, though, for Eric.
Always. Never. There's a lot of heat in that chair. It's a hot seat.
It is.
I mean, it's like
Not
the
everyone can
drummers of
handle it.
Spinal Tap. They tend to disappear after a while, one way or the other. We hope Eric
Exactly like that.
will be the one that sticks around.
we'll see how Vegas goes, guys. I might just stay in the desert.
Yeah, well, you know what they say. All right, here we go. Anybody have comments before we move into this conversation?
I can relate to the staying in the desert comment by him. So
That's why we're concerned. That's why the league is concerned about this Vegas trip for you. That's a long drive for the Cessna.
We're going to put a tracker on your car.
I know you've been driving more.
I haven't driven.
I know,
more.
but how much is he actually driving?
He's a really good driver, right?
Very.
Wait, are you a front seat driver? Are you like the passenger in a 2-car journey with the significant other?
No, I'll drive in the same car. I'll drive as much.
Are you
as I
behind the
can.
wheel?
Sure, a bunch of the time.
Yeah, split it up.
That's how you do it, I think.
No, I don't split it up. Split it up.
Wow.
I mean, I live with.
Dan likes to
I
be
should
in
drive
control.
the entire way.
Absolutely.
I know, but I'm also preparing for a show
Yes.
and taking thorough notes and researching.
I mean, my lovely Emeka wife doesn't drive. I have to just drive to the grocery store.
I live in my car.
Greg's wife is still mad that they moved to California, so her way of getting back was, I'm never getting a driver's license in Los Angeles to make your life 29% worse.
That's a pretty fantastic
Yes or no, Greg?
piece of revenge.
What a plan by her.
She definitely would rather be in New York or Tokyo.
All right, here we go. New York or Tokyo.
That's it.
Not Los Angeles.
Problematic.
All right, the number 10 call of this season belongs to, should I set these up? I have the top 10 here.
Yeah, you got the top 10. So
All
if
right.
you just want to toss to it and then you give him credit after the end. that might
Okay,
work.
the number 10 call goes back to the playoffs, and it was the dagger throw by Jordan Love.
1st and 10 football at the 38 of Dallas. Play action, a bootleg, left half bootleg. Now throw back the other way. He's got him wide open. Down the right side. Musgrave, end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown! Luke Musgrave. And a dagger. A dagger right through the heart of the Cowboys.
Great call by Wayne Larrabee, of course, of WRNW. And credit to Fox, too, because we're seeing, if you're watching this on Fast, you're seeing a woman in Arlington at Jarrow World just throwing her arms up like, I can't believe this is happening. The dagger just cutting through everyone in the town.
Through the heart.
Stunner.
That woman makes this call so much better. The cutaway shot of her, it all kind of plays together and makes it perfect.
Do we ding Larrabee because he's not seeing that necessarily? Am I overthinking this?
Dagger through the heart is great, and it was the last
Yeah.
dagger of the season. I felt like the last 2 months, every Sunday was some version of a different dagger, and this was the logical conclusion.
Great
Through the heart,
season
you're
for
dead.
Larrabee.
I like it. I need a little bit more in general from these calls. So let's see what comes up next.
That's why it came in at number 10. And remember, if some of these feel underwhelming, it's not because it's not Eric's fault. It's because in the moment
Why do you feel that?
we said to Eric,
Right.
no, we want to make it clear.
Add.
We say to Eric, put that in the folder.
Yeah.
So if, Mark, you're underwhelmed, maybe you should have said something in the moment. Like, don't put that in the folder.
I'd point the
Accountability.
finger at myself.
Number 9.
I'm with you.
Let's go to Tennessee, where the new kid quarterback finishes off a masterpiece of a Week 8 performance.
On 2nd and 11. Play fake. Levis rolling to the right, looking, firing deep downfield, going for Westbrook. Akine in the end zone. Touchdown! Titans! Will Levis on his back gets to watch as he has just thrown his 4th touchdown pass of his NFL debut. Hey, that dude has got an arm. Whoa! What a big-time throw.
There it is. 4 TDs for Levis. Mike Keith with the call. Dave McGinnis. I think part of the reason maybe on that one, Greg, that we were like, put it in the folder is because you were expecting, this Levis is the start of an every week occurrence. He never did that again, but it was pretty awesome in the moment.
I think just having Mike Keith, if we went back and listened to this year after year, and like had a all-time power rankings, I feel like you just get a Mike Keith calling every year.
Got to get Keith in there.
Mike Keith is awesome.
All right, number 8. Okay, so Cowboys had a big year. Deron Bland had a big year, setting an NFL record for pick sixes. This was the point of the season where you began expecting it and just saying, when will it happen? I believe this might have been the last one, but it was a memorable one.
2nd and 10. Jones is back. Plenty of time. Rolls right. Bottled up. Throws back to the edge. Intercepted. Deron Bland. Call the house. Hello, house. House, it's me, Deron. Hello, house. Touchdown for Deron Bland.
I love that one.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
And bonus points because, Mark, we were at Cowboys camp this summer. We met with Brad Sham, the Sham God.
Yeah.
Who has a close relationship with Oliver Stone, or at least was in a film of his.
That's right.
And we had a long conversation with the Sham God. So to hear him and that call, I like that one.
Well, and that happened so often for him to cover, and he found a new way to do it.
Right. I don't think that was pre-planned. That's why I love it.
He's an innovator.
Hi, House. Hello, House. All right, number 7. Okay, this one's a little bit controversial because you would say, it should always be some type of exciting call. But this was a call that took place in the second half of one of the most grisly blowouts in NFL history. And it happens to involve, in the booth, Matt Money Smith and Bucky Brooks' podcast partner. That they just launched a show together.
What is his name? God, I wish I could remember.
Let's have them look that up.
Here we go.
Guy.
At 42-0, and with the Raiders at the goal line, here's the call from Money.
Have you decided whether you want to stand up or sit down yet?
I think I want to lay down under the desk.
I was looking for a blindfold, but apparently you can't do this job with a blindfold.
No, we have to watch. We'll do our best to bring you some entertaining play-by-play and analysis of what has been wildly disappointing. Here's a double pass to the end zone, and hey, why not? Just humiliate him.
Oh my God!
I didn't know this was eligible for some reason. I thought it was
great.
in some separate category. This might be my number 1, but wow, that's an all-timer.
I am the nerd.
I would have saved that for future use. We need that.
I am the nerd that drives around listening to AM sports radio in Los Angeles, and Matt Money Smith and Petros they have a show that ranges from 1 hour to 4 hours depending on when the Dodgers play or someone else. But Matt Money Smith is ready for anything, and I think he's got a underrated sense of humor and a wry sort of sarcasm, and it played out right there. And it's I love that kind of thing. I like when our play-by-play, when play-by-play people are not just robots. There are a lot of robots. He's not a robot.
That's funny because I'm listening to that call and did, power rankings for a couple of years with Matt and got to know him, and he just sounds mad. He sounds like
That's
it's
not his
embarrassing
style.
for everyone. So he's using it, that type of tone there. But
they're
that
part
is
of the team.
Yes,
I mean,
that
on
is
some level, they're a part of the team. They get a Super Bowl ring if they win the Super Bowl.
And they're
mad.
You get points to critique then.
It's not Jameis Winston, and the running play with Jamal Williams, but Antonio Pierce calling a double pass to get Devontae Adams a touchdown up 42-0 kind of flew under the radar a little bit in terms of dick moves. But listen, it got him a head coach job in some part.
Funny just being yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Just defeated.
He said just humiliate them. And I think he's talking about the booth as well. Just tough one. All right. Let's do something more positive for the Raiders. The Patriots pop up a couple times here, Greg, in negative ways, but that's
this is Mac Jones' second total blunder to set up an opponent.
All right, here we go.
How about we finish this off with a safety, shall we? Anything but a deep ball. 4 down territory, obviously. Jones standing in his own end zone to our right. Snap, back to pass. Pressure again off the edge. And he's sacked for the safety. Crosby and Nichols, they met in the end zone. They squished into the turf, and the Raiders defense has that safety.
Jason
since you predicted it, how about you give me the lottery numbers for next week?
Jason Horowitz and Lincoln Kennedy with the call, the KRLV. You'd think based on the first half of this top 10 that the Raiders are playing on Sunday, but that's not exactly what happened. But they had some exciting moments. Connie, any thoughts there?
I just like how clairvoyant he was in the moment.
Bonus points for that.
I just like throughout the course of the season, you could feel a catastrophic Mac Jones play coming, and then it always came. It's truly one of the worst quarterback seasons from a quarterback I feel like that we've seen be okay ever. I mean, it was an all-time bad quarterback.
Where is he going to be next year? Like, what kind of market will he command if he's not with? Is he going to be with the Patriots?
I mean, he has a contract.
He's under contract.
Will someone give up a 7th round conditional pick and just to have a new start? I would think so. Something like that on draft day.
All right, this next one I had slightly higher, but in the averaged weight, it ended at number 5. The Texans and the Titans, and this one was on my radar and a lot of people out there.
I like this one.
Because
Mark just perked up.
The Titans had the gall.
Yes.
The gall.
Yes.
After ownership abandoned the city of Houston. Abandoned them and went to Nashville. Okay? To then have the absolute audacity to then wear a Houston Oilers throwback jersey for their throwback week when they're playing against the Texans, the team that replaced the Oilers after, to borrow a Sesslerism, they ripped the Oilers out of the belly
right,
of
terrible,
Houston.
Terrible manners, and they pay for it. And
Disgraceful. To the highlight.
16-16, 2 seconds to go in overtime. 54-yard attempt, left hash mark. Here's the snap. Here's the spot. Here's the kick by Fairbairn. Yes! Good! The Texans win! Yes! Legendary! Fairbairn knocks it through from 54 as the Texans defeat the former Oilers.
Put those uniforms back in the trunk.
In the trunk they go. They go.
I think you want the voices of your team
1916
to
final.
feel the same anger and fire and joy that you feel, and like they speak for the fans right there. And that one, I think I had it ranked higher because of the
Mark Vandermeer and Andre Ware with the call for KIL.
That's what you get.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
Put
So
them back
many
in the
of
trunk.
these are on the list because of the tag from the color analyst to cap it is the winner.
You're always going to get bonus points when the color analyst goes full fan and just starts screaming celebration. Number 4. Oh, it was a special second half for Cleveland Browns fans as Joe Flacco stepped in and took the team to the playoffs. Here was one of his many big plays that season.
This Flacco on 4th down
Still
and
same
3.
season.
Play
Feels
clock
like a
is at
different
5. I don't know if they're going to snap it. Play clock is at 2. They do. He rolls right. He throws the middle. It's wide open. Down at the 25, at the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. It's David Bell. Oh, my goodness. They forgot to cover David Bell.
It was the parting of the Red Sea, Jim. David Bell, who has been searching, yearning, desiring to get into the end zone in the National Football League, will desire no more, my friend.
Jim Donovan and Nathan Segura with the call. The great Jim Donovan. Was that the game where we went with the onside kick play call on Sunday?
Oh, no.
I'm not sure about that one. Well, you
Producer
wanted,
Eric is
you
nodding
wanted
his head.
David Njoku that day.
Yeah, it was onside. There was a slight part of me where I thought about sneaking that into this list just as a surprise for you, but I know we're on a time here. But yeah, that was the play. And then we also played an Njoku highlight later in the week, too. It was, you were
multiple times. I would like Jim Donovan. We all know he struggled a lot. He's been through a lot of health battles.
Yes.
And to come back and I think of all these guys, he's got to be in a top 3 of enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
That when something good happens to the Browns, like he cannot control himself. And they're incredible. Him and Segura also is like a ball of energy. But like they have like video shots of these guys up in the booth, and you think like they're sitting down with like notes, like they're standing up going crazy, and like Jim Donovan is right at the top of the list. So I like that.
And a special shout out, even though not on the list, but easily could have been on the list, Andrew Siciliano, who stepped in for Jim when he was dealing with health issues and had
Chris
some
Rose,
really
too.
great calls. Chris too.
Yep.
During some of those unlikely Browns wins throughout throughout the season. All right, number 3. All right, we're on to the medal stand, Connie.
Okay.
Here we go.
The bronze.
You knew Wolfley was going to be on the list.
He is heroic.
Cardinals Steelers Week 13.
3rd down and a yard on the 9. 3 tight ends. Murray under center. Connor behind him. 1 receiver to the right. They hand it off. Connor to the left. 1st down. Connor dives for the end zone. Touchdown.
Nice tackle.
James Conner with 2 scores in the welcome back party in Pittsburgh.
Oh, the Cardinals just broke out the black and blue brigade, baby. Light up and suck the beating heart, metaphorically speaking, out of your opponent.
Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Wow.
As opposed to literally murdering your opponent by sticking your hand into the chest, Temple of Doom style.
I mean, it was top 5 the second he just goes, oh, to start it.
That just comes from such a deep place within himself. I love it.
Does he talk like that when he's at the deli counter? Like
I
at
think
Ralph's?
so. I think that's who he is. He's just sort of like a strange. He's won this before. Like he won it for
He's top 5 every year.
We're going to go with a half pound of the turkey.
All right, number 2. Ooh.
The silver?
Yeah, the silver. Do you would you rather be 2 or 3 ultimately?
2, what?
Because you're so close to 1 at that point.
Yeah, but 3, you're so much farther from 1.
You recently celebrated your birthday, Connie.
I did.
And you sent a clip of doing an incredible, was it a triple axle?
No, it's
double axe?
Just a little scratch spin.
Pretty damn impressive.
Thank you.
I have to say. But you're saying a silver medal beats bronze.
Yeah,
Good to know.
Michelle Kwan, always getting that silver.
How about Kerrigan getting edged?
The Olympians always say silver hurts.
Points.
Because then you just wish you won, whereas Browns, you're kind of happy to be there.
Kerrigan went through a lot.
Kerrigan gets whacked in the knee.
Yeah. And
then I think it was Kwan, maybe? Or no, Katarina Witt?
Maybe.
I refused to
I
watch
loved
the event after Kerrigan was whacked. I thought that it lost all integrity.
Eric, the producer, please look up who defeated Nancy Kerrigan in the Olympics by fractions of a point.
It wasn't Lipinski yet, I don't think.
No, she wasn't in the mix. No, she was definitely after. Yeah.
I think it was maybe Katarinovic. She was definitely in the mix.
I don't think so either. But number 2, silver medal goes to our buddy at the barbershop.
2nd down and goal from the 5. Has a snap, helmet high, looking left, now middle, pressure. He steps up, he throws, right side, end zone, caught! Caught back right pylon! DeMarcus Robinson with the go-ahead score! Matthew Stafford playing like an ellipsis! Dot after dot after dot! Touchdown, L.A.!
The great JB, along with the call, KSPN. I love JB's style because he's economical, but also vivid in his descriptions, and that's truly an original call. An ellipsis, half the people might need to look up, what is that? And then you see it, dot, dot, dot. And that was Stafford all season long.
Right, in a time when grammar has been thrown out of the side of the car. Moving car, like he is a technical assassin, and
it was one of literally the best drives by any quarterback all season. Because he's right, like Stafford on that drive made 3 or 4 ridiculous throws. I don't know if this is going to make it awkward when we see JB next. That he was so close to the mountaintop, and he's like, "What? You couldn't just give it to me, guys?" Or if it is motivation, something to strive for our friend for next year, so he doesn't rest on his laurels.
That's good too.
A little bit of both.
And I think I think a little bit of him will be like, as disappointed as he may be, oh wow, those guys had crazy amounts of integrity.
I'm sure that's what he's going to think.
Do we know, by the way, who beat
Oksana Bayul?
Who beat Kerrigan?
Bayul on a big spot.
Bayul on a big spot. Ukraine.
Yawn. Just a massive yawn to her.
All right, number 1. Here we go.
Simsbury, Connecticut resident.
Give me
my grandfather.
Give me a little timpani drum, because there can only be one. There can only be one. The greatest call, and maybe the Super Bowl will bring a great call itself, but the one that from all these games that was better than any other. To the wild card playoff round we go, Ford Field.
Here we go. Goff works out of the gun. 2nd down and 9. 2 minutes to go. There's Goff. Back. Looking. Throws. It is caught. Amon-Ra St. Brown. 1st down. That's going to do it. That's going to do it. That's going to do it. Jared Goff delivers against his former team. Now all they have to do is take a knee 3 times, and this game will be over. For the second time since 1957, for the first time since January 5th, 1992, these Detroit Lions are going to win a playoff game.
Whoa, of course. That is the voice of Dan Miller, WXYT, a man who's been calling Lions games for a long time now and doing an incredible job at it. And so happy now to see Dan calling a big-time team. And with that said, what fortuity that now joining us in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, the integrity is off the charts. There he is, Dan Miller. Welcome to Around the NFL.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Better now.
Dan.
Well, that was very nice. I appreciate that. That was very kind.
You earned it. You're the Oksana Bayul of this particular competition. Dan, about, what would it have been? It would have been about 8 years ago now. When I was writing the pain rankings, I wanted to talk to someone who truly understood what the Lions have been through over these years. And it was you who I thought of, and you were so nice to talk with me on the phone. And here is the first question, and this is a tough way to open an interview, but listen, what did I know? I'm not a real journalist, Dan. Here we go. In your first 6 years on the job as the play-by-play guy, the Lions went 23-74. And I asked how that made your job more difficult, and you spoke expressively, and it was very interesting. Now we're on the other side of it. What a fun season that you just went through with the Lions, and literally 2 years with Dan Campbell.
Yeah, this is much better. I will tell you that. And that call and that emotion was just really just everything that I think we've all been through. And believe me, I've done this for 19 years. There's a lot of people out there that felt the release of that victory and that moment that have been around it a lot longer than I have, decades longer than I have, and have known really nothing but heartache and disappointment, and just that win was just so important for so many people, so many reasons, for the franchise, for the city, for the moment. And it was just, I think, it was relief. It was being thrilled beyond belief. And it was just a million emotions that went into one, and just an electric night downtown in Detroit. It was just amazing.
It's some of my earliest football memories are like driving around with my dad to go do like various chores on a Sunday, and like listening to football on the radio. And it's such a different visceral experience than television for obvious reasons. Like you've got to paint this picture. And it's weird that my memories of listening to radio are still visual in some way just by looking out the window at the same time. But like, how do you like attack a radio broadcast versus like when you're so connected to these Lions fans and you're painting the picture of this historic, incredible game and moment? Like, how do you even just go into it and just bring that energy? I think it's like instructive to people because it's not a job that very many people could do.
Well, I think there is something magic about radio. I mean, I grew up in Washington, D.C. and Maryland and Virginia, and I was a Washington fan growing up. And I still can, in my mind's eye, see John Riggins going around the left side to win the Super Bowl. And although I watched that game on TV, in my mind, it's Frank Herzog, the radio voice of Washington at the time, that I always hear his call, even though I didn't hear that until later. But I've heard it so many times since that is kind of the soundtrack of my mind. I think I don't operate with a restrictor plate. I just kind of go, and I just let my emotions go, and I am emotionally involved. I make no bones about the fact, and I think every person that's doing play-by-play for a team is rooting for that team to win. It's a little different than when you're covering it as beat writer or something like that. You're fair. You say when it's bad, you say when it's good, but at the end of the day, you want to see that team do well. And I tell people all the time, there's nothing better in my job than seeing the fans happy. And in that moment, they have not been that happy in a long, long time, more than 30 years. And I knew what that was going to mean to them. And I knew what that was going to mean to this team. And I'll tell you flat out, in my 43 years in this business, I've never wanted to see an athlete win a game more than I wanted to see Jared Goff win that game. And there was just, I think, just so many things that went into that. But just generality, you're trying to bring the game to them. And I think if anything probably resonates with fans, at least what I hope it is, it's that I'm as excited about what I'm seeing as they are. I mean, I love it. I love the fact that I get to bring it to them, but it's real because it comes from a real place. And is just, that's the expression you get. And I think, that's what I hear from them most is you feel our pain and you feel when things go well, just the same way we do.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Goff because you got that angle in there on that call right away within all the emotion. That's what I'm going to break down why I think it had to be the call of the year. Other than us showing our integrity, that we chose you over our friend JB Long because it had everything.
I'm just glad JB explained what an ellipsis is. I appreciated that. So because I was like, ellipsis, then he went ... like, got it.
You had the emotion, obviously, which that's like the most important thing. You knew the moment, but you also understood before getting that first down exactly the scenario of everything that you needed to get that first down, but you immediately followed it up with the nuts and bolts of that they're going to have to kneel here, but that they've won the game. And sometimes that's all difficult to keep track in the moment. You got the Goff angle in there right away, and then after that, you got in the historical context of it all in like very quick succession, all sort of different things that you have to serve. Are you thinking as that's all happening? I know the emotion is just coming out. That's the emotional part, but those key sort of points that you're getting in that quick call, are you thinking about that ahead of time? Or are you just thinking about, I want to get all of this in the moment?
So I'll kind of take you inside our booth. When they went to timeout with 2 minutes to go, and my guys, TJ Lang and Lomas Brown, are both saying, throw it, throw it, throw it. So we were kind of expecting they were going to throw it. We know Dan Campbell, and he's a throw it guy. And then when we went to that 2 minute timeout, I'm looking at my spotter, I'm looking at my stat guide, I'm going, if we get a first down, they have one timeout, the game's over. It's over. And I'm doing math, and it's actually very simple. I just want to make sure that we got it right. I mean, even if they call a timeout, you get the first down, you run first down 40, you run second down 40, you run third down 40. That's 2 minutes right there. So it's going to be over. So once I got the mechanics of the clock in my head and knew that I could sell out if they got the first down, then you knew you could just kind of let it go. I did throw in the have to take 3 knees thing because I didn't want to say it's over, and then they mess it up, and then I have to come back and say, okay, guys, sorry about that. So I wanted to spell out the fact that, yes, they do have to execute that. And I did ask Frank Ragnow about that later. I said, is that an easy play? And he goes, not always. He goes, the first one you want to make sure of, and then you relax a little bit. But no, look, the Goff angle was so embedded in my head all week long, knowing what, in my mind, this meant to him and what this meant to this team. That I think that just came out. That was just natural. And I do honestly believe that was a closure moment for Jared. That was you know what? This thing is finally behind me now, because I've been in the front row to watch everything that Jared has been through since he's come here, and everything he's endured, and everything that he has handled like an absolute pro. And I just think if you lose that game and you lose to that coach, that team, that quarterback again, and nothing personal against any of them, but it's just the way that this business works. I think, man, you got to live with that. And then when you win, even though, they got their Super Bowl, but you know what? You knocked them out. There's peace in that. You move forward in the playoffs. You did your job. And in my mind, that just meant so much. And I think that's why that came out in that moment.
Kind of a follow on this one, and then we'll let you go, Dan. 24/7 at halftime. Like at the Grammys, for instance, which just occurred, Taylor Swift's going there. She's probably going to pick up some hardware, so she could act like she doesn't have anything pre-prepared, but she does. And I'm just thinking, as the play-by-play guy, once you get to that point in that game, in the NFC title game, which of course ended up not working out for Detroit, but knowing that once you get to the end of that game, that becomes potentially one of the most famous play calls in the history of Detroit sports. Did you have something kind of in mind to weave in if it got to that point and they did close that game out?
Yes. And I've had it, and I've done it many times driving down the road. I absolutely had it, and I've still got it. It's in my back pocket. I hope to use it. I hope to use it next year. But yeah, that's as high as, you get winning 2 playoff games. There's the gut punch of being that close to a Super Bowl and not getting there. And, Brad Holmes had his press conference today and talked about expecting to be there again next year. So the answer is yes. And those moments are hard sometimes to prepare for because you never know how it's going to happen. Is it going to be a 31-7 game and it's kind of anticlimactic, or is it going to be an interception that ices it or a touchdown that happens? But I think I did have something of a historical perspective of what it would mean to Detroit, because I think we know what that would mean. It would be incredible because it's something that everybody there has dreamed about for a long time and has never happened. So I think that's ultimately what you want to capture.
Well, this makes up for it, though, right? Like you finishing number one on our radio
Obviously.
calls.
Guys, this
good
is
and bad,
cool.
right?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's listen, we're just checking boxes in Detroit this year. So won a division, won a home playoff game, won another playoff game. I won this. So just one by one, we're just checking boxes here.
And Dan, it doesn't feel like it's SOL anymore. Like it feels like things have really changed and turned around. I was lucky enough to be in Detroit for the game against the Bucks. I learned all about Better Made and Fago and SO. Like I didn't know what Same Old Lions was until I got there, and I feel like I got there after the fact, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think you have to retire that. I mean, that's been around for a long time, and you know what? They did figure out ways to lose things and do things that just kind of defied logic and you just never thought could happen, and you would just kind of throw up and say Same Old Lions. But look, if they truly were, there's so many times this season where they would have found a way to lose a game, be it late against Minnesota when you're trying to clinch the division, or even that Rams game with Matthew Stafford driving down the field. You know, you don't get the play that makes it 4th and 14, and you know, Aiden Hutchinson doesn't draw the holding penalty. You know, so many things have happened where the old Lions would have figured out a way to lose the game. So I think, you know, in fairness to these guys who have changed the conversation and done so many things that haven't happened before, that I think you have to say, you know, let's put those 3 letters away and let's let these guys say that they changed it.
What's your dog's name?
Even my dog agrees.
Dog's like, I want to hear the speech that you have. Dan, thank you so much, buddy. You're the best, and we can't wait to hear you again in September.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. That was fun.
All right, there he goes.
I still want to know what his dog's name is. We're going to have to take that offline.
Shoot.
Take it offline.
That's a follow-up.
There you
Hey.
go.
Classic Connie follow-up.
Yep.
I like interviewing
What a class act.
announcers. I think we should do it more often.
I think there's anybody that listens to the show knows we have a level of fascination with the craft, and I don't know too many other podcasts in general that have ever really focused in on that side of the game, which really connects with the fans in such a more direct level than the national calls. Not that there aren't great calls by all these guys that do the national games, but it's those local.
Wolfley. You
I
have
get
to
it.
get Wolfley on.
He's next.
You know, I think we did.
No, I don't.
Do it again.
I don't know.
Sounds
Way
a little
back.
bit familiar.
Way back.
I don't know.
Did it not go well?
No, I think it
No,
was.
it would go well.
Is he on the hit it and quit it list? I
No.
don't
No,
think
no,
so.
no, no.
Bring
It would,
him
it would have
back.
gone well if we.
I think it was the season when he did the on the dusty on the flower.
The sunlit, moonlit night. I
moonlit.
think we
I
thought
don't
we
know what
did,
I'm
but
talking
you know what? I think it's funny because we don't remember who's been on the show, but then someone will remind us in the next 48
That is
Surely.
absolutely
By the way-
huge right there.
His dog's name is Murphy. For
Murphy.
anyone that's wondering.
Did you just connect with that?
I just like, yeah, my energy kind of locked in.
If that's right. that's
Shout out to
incredible.
Madison.
Oh, there you go. All right, Connie, you've said it all. And here's the good news for everyone. Connie's got to get to a meeting. She's part of the opening night festivities.
Yep.
For NFL Network.
Tomorrow is
So-
my F-16 flight.
Whoa. You're flying to
Good
Vegas
luck.
tonight, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're doing opening night from Vegas.
No, I'm doing
Oh.
opening night here
Okay.
from LA and then flying to Vegas for some reason.
All
But
right, just be careful with the flight.
hey, I will. I
No,
will.
we worry about you here. But
I know.
have fun.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So-
I'm not going to pass out.
And here's the good
Oh,
news
be
for all
careful
of
what
us.
You eat beforehand too.
The day after that flight, although we learned that women are better than
Or better than men? Is that
better
what you're
than
gonna
men.
say?
Generally, yes.
We keep learning. We're continually learning that.
But certainly when it comes
Physiologically,
to the G's.
yes, they
Yeah.
are better built to handle the G's for some reason,
We were
except
using
for
the
Greg.
slang term, Greg.
Got it.
60%.
Let's go G's.
Yeah.
We go
Yeah.
G's on this
You
side.
don't need to explain G's to me.
I'm surprised. you said G for
The
us.
G.
Yeah, you should have just said, yeah, G's.
G-Force should be your nickname.
I got
Yes.
too many nicknames.
Yeah, what do you think, Mark?
I got too many nicknames.
No. What?
Colleen, after
He should like his own nickname.
after opening night, after Wednesday at Radio Row, you'll be with us so we could talk about everything that happened.
I can't believe we're all going to be in Vegas
Have fun.
together.
It's going to be great. All right.
So excited.
All right, Connie, we're going to say bye to
Okay.
Connie. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to do some news, and then talk with Brian Baldinger about this Super Bowl game.
Love it.
We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. What a show so far. Our last show here in Los Angeles before we jump on the bird. We don't get G's up there, but we move pretty quick on that plane. A quick little jump over to Vegas, about a 45-minute flight. No one's complaining. And then we are touching down, and then we are going straight from McCarran Airport to Radio Row, where we will meet with Colleen and do the first of 4 shows from Las Vegas, culminating, of course, with the Super Bowl 58 recap flagship show.
That's the show we have a special big-time guest. Mark will be very excited for Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Mark knows who the guest is, but you're right. I am
Well, the
excited.
listeners don't, and maybe
No.
that this person will cancel, and we don't want to, put them in a bad spot.
Or maybe they
That's
won't.
good
So
showman.
just know.
That's a good showman tactic right
Nice.
there. Don't over promise. Could be anyone.
Well done, Greg.
I'm just happy we're not there now. I'm showing my age, but I am loving that we get there Wednesday versus I saw everyone there yesterday afternoon at Radio Row. I was like, "Ooh, that's too. It's too.
Feels
early.
like a lot.
Too early.
I remember being on a boat in New York Harbor or something for the Peyton Manning press conference on a Saturday the week before the Super Bowl.
Right. You were sent there because Wes was a day late because of some sort of flight issues and showed up in New York with no coat. And he and I were down in like Hackensack, New Jersey, while the two of you were up in Manhattan.
about me.
I believe you were in Hoboken.
Hoboken.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was actually Jersey City.
And it started a
and we were in a
6-month
low
process of him trying to get a winter coat expensed. That was like the subject of way too many conversations.
Was the luggage lost? Is that what happened?
His entire fleet of luggage was completely lost, and he showed up to Jersey City. And that Super Bowl was lucky because of the temperature. And it started snowing after the game, but it was fine. But the days leading up, where he and I went to a Chili's 3 nights in a row down in this like Russian landscape, was freezing, absolute dead winter, and he had no coat.
Tough.
And you guys were up in Manhattan, having bubbly with who knows who.
Unbelievable.
I don't know how that came to be.
Caviar every night for Greg and I on top of the Chrysler building. Not quite, but yes, because what happened was I get a little more shading on that one. The year before, weirdly, was the Niners Ravens Super Bowl, and we were in the top rafters of the Superdome, and it was so cold up there. The air conditioning, this is before the power outage, maybe this caused the power outage, was so freezingly cold, like shooting down on everyone that worked in NFL media, that they actually greenlit people going to the concession stands to get jackets and hoodies to wear for the game. I didn't do one myself, but a lot of people did. So I think Wes, in the back of his mind, said, we were able to do that last year. He did the same thing and bought like a $175 Super Bowl winner jacket, and then the expense report came back with a big old, he gone.
They reacted sharply to that.
And Greg, as his boss at the time, did you get him the money?
I don't remember. I remember... Actually, I believe a promise was made to him that it would be okay from my boss at the time. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, friend of ours, but and then I think he was kind of talking out of his butt, like he often did.
That could be so many people. All right, we have Baldy coming up to break down some interesting plot lines heading into Niners Chiefs on Sunday. But first, let's get caught up on some news.
Kick-tack-toe, tic-tac-toe.
Oh, nice.
Brandon has a chance to win here.
The crowd goes wild. Oh.
Kicker Club.
He won! What a win for the AFC! Congratulations to Justin Tucker. That was awesome, man.
Way to play like a Raven.
Listen, you know I love kickers, and I love me Brandon Aubrey. I mean, what a season he had. Justin Tucker is maybe my favorite player who's ever lived in our league. Some notes for that. If we're gonna have a kicker tic-tac-toe, let's get some bodies in there. Let's get some crowd in there. Let's get some audience.
Yeah, that was weird because the rest of the stuff they did indoors, and then certainly on Sunday with the games, and then the extra stuff where they had amazingly 60,000 people there, like had an audience.
Listen,
I don't know why the kicker thing.
Let's
was
funnel
late night.
some of that $60K into the field house for the kicker game, or go Judge Judy it and pay some people to be there, and then let's put some music underneath it. If we're looking to change how the kicking game is viewed, I mean, that was a little. We could do better. That's all.
Yeah, I think
I'm free. Reach out to me, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah, it's continued, enthusiastic disrespect for a position that I think could have had a lot of people cheering, booming.
What a win for the AFC!
Or that.
Also, they literally don't allow kicking in the flag football game, which is just
Why not?
more disrespect.
Why not?
The kickers have no role.
By the way, when I was speaking, we were talking about the West thing, the Brian Hoyer wager with Johnny Manziel. Just to refresh my memory of that moment in time, because obviously, and we talked about the Johnny Manziel documentary recently that was really obviously illuminating and how messed up he was behind the scenes. It came down to a exhibition game against Washington. Mike Pettin was trying to figure out who am I going to go with, and he wanted somebody to win the battle. And obviously Manziel was a wreck, but Hoyer was playing terribly. He'd missed most of the previous season, and they both played really poorly in that game. But what gave Hoyer the edge was, in addition to Manziel struggling, he gave the finger to the Redskins sideline during the game, which is outrageous. Like that, that's the first round pick.
He did, and like that, it was a moment in Browns history where their preseason games were like watched by way more people than you'd ever imagine. But I will say one thing about West, that around week 7 or 8, because I think they started that season around 6-3 or 7-3 before they lost all the rest of their games. But Hoyer, under Kyle Shanahan, who was the 1-year offensive coordinator, was, because of play action and the way that Shanahan does what he does with quarterbacks, was having this pretty great season. And this was back when we could kind of write whatever we wanted as articles. It was just like, if you're fascinated by this, go write an article. Like Wes wrote this Brian Hoyer, Kyle Shanahan article that I think predates a lot of other people's Shanahan analysis in general. And despite the fact that he lost that sandwich bet, he turned around and made this incredible written piece about it, and that was kind of Wes in a nutshell.
Yeah, well said. And Manziel then also said in that documentary, like, the one place I couldn't go was Cleveland. You had a young Kyle Shanahan there if you just would have had your head on straight, but he did not. All right. I think Shanahan left because of Manziel.
Well, there were a lot of
ownership,
issues with ownership.
Yeah.
He asked to leave his contract.
All right, here's the news.
Because ownership made them play Manziel.
Yes, and the GM got suspended for using, the cell
Andrew
phone down
Hawkins
to the
said,
sideline.
when Mike Pettin called him to tell him about that, he thought Mike Pettin was joking. As like a veteran leader, like, hey, how do you think everyone will handle this? And he literally laughed and thought he was being sarcastic.
Let's start with the Washington Commanders. We are all absolutely thrilled about the Dan Quinn hiring now. And they have also filled their offensive coordinator position, hiring Cardinals coach Cardinals coach Kliff Kingsbury. The team announced that on Monday. Kingsbury, some Palace intrigue here, had been very close to joining the Raiders as their OC until contract talks broke down on Saturday. Washington talked to Kingsbury that day. The deal completed the day after that. I don't know, Greg. I don't know how this works, and I saw some percolations on Twitter around something you sent out, that Kliff Kingsbury could be so hot in demand after, quite frankly, disastrous tenure, certainly the end of it with Arizona, and yet here we are, two teams fighting over Kingsbury. Only one gets him, and it's the Commanders.
It's crazy to me because, like, what about their run offensively did anyone like? Like, they underachieved in terms of what he had, and it just sounds like he was going to sign with the Raiders, and then the Washington became interested, and since he hadn't signed on the dotted line yet, they said contract negotiations broke down, and he just decided this was a better spot for him. And I'm rooting for Dan Quinn. I don't know. I don't know if I'm excited for Kliff Kingsbury to have the number 2 overall draft pick.
And he's, obviously with USC ties a year ago, he's tied to Caleb Williams, and you wonder if Chicago goes in a different direction, like that could be his quarterback.
Or if they could trade their assets up just to go 1 to 2.
Sure, they could trade up. I guess I'm with you in the sense that like I came out of that Kliff Kingsbury experience because I went into it like this could be one of these sort of fascinating turning points in the NFL, and it was kind of marked by chaos and like increasing disorganization and upset players by the end
very
of it.
Static offense, like uncreative, just the same thing over and over. And the thing you were referring to that I mentioned was like, I still think some coaches really play the media game hard, and the agents obviously do too. So it's like a combination. And I do actually, one of the things covering the league for 20 years, I wouldn't have thought that it mattered so much. And now you realize like it only matters so much. You have to have some goods, but it can matter. And some coaches, I think, really have a way of befriending a ton of media. And it's usually not just 1 or 2 guys and women. It's everyone. It's like they're friends with everyone. And the agent is too. And they get a lot of good press because of it. I thought Jeff Fisher was like the old king of it. Like Kliff Kingsbury is one of the new kings of it. And I think that helped him get a job and helped him be like a hot commodity. The opposite is whatever's happening with Ben Johnson, who turned down this Washington job apparently. And now Washington and some of the same people who are pumping up Kliff are giving this smear campaign against Ben Johnson because he turned them down.
So this is an ESPN report that Johnson had issues with Commanders ownership after interviewing to be their new head coach in the wake of Ron Rivera's firing. Johnson, according to this report, considered the ownership group led by owner Josh Harris, 76ers owner also, as well as Hall of Famer Magic Johnson, one of the great basketball players of all time. He saw them as, quote, basketball guys. And that's not going to work. You know why it's not going to work?
Football is completely different than basketball.
And he believed that they were, according to this report, overly confident about their football knowledge. The report then also threw out there that Johnson fared poorly in his interview. So back and forth they go.
Well, but here's the thing. Washington started it. And then I don't love
started it.
That Ben Johnson's agent very likely is the one that comes back with this basketball guy stuff. But they started it immediately saying like he didn't interview well. Now there's this report in The Athletic that he seems not really like a leader, that he's more just a guy in a lab, cooking up schemes and doesn't deal with players. You were going to hire him, and no one was denying that. They were literally on the plane to hire him. First of all, that's completely disrespectful to Aaron Glenn, who they were also going to interview. It makes it obvious that that was a sham interview that they were just doing to check a Rooney Rule box. So you're saying like, oh, how is this going to make Ben Johnson look around? Like, how does it make you look? And I don't know. This stuff drives me crazy.
It sure does.
I think it's if you're a Commanders fan, like you just exited a completely darkest night
It's
era
not great.
with Dan Snyder, and now this is happening with new leadership.
Now I remember what I was trying to think of was part of that Athletic report was they were going to hire Mike McDonald too. They wanted to hire Mike McDonald, and McDonald.
Does that make Quinn the fourth or
no,
the third?
He's the third choice, and McDonald chose the Seahawks over him because, according to Washington, and I don't necessarily believe this, but that Seattle outspent him. My guess is the money was good in both places, and McDonald picked the place that just seemed like the better option.
It's like I guess if you're Ben Johnson, like why burn bridges? Like I know that the Washington organization started a lot of this, but it's like Ben Johnson's camp has responded a couple different times. Like you're back in the coaching search mix a year from now, and it's like we now think different things about you than we did 2 weeks ago.
I think
That's what we
maybe
heard
back
about Chip
to
Kelly when he kept turning people down too, and he still got hired.
If you said that,
yeah, but Chip Kelly
Commanders
also became Chip Kelly was a pretty difficult person to work with by the end too.
True.
And it was the Commanders who leaked it first that he interviewed poorly?
It really started that way, yes.
So you can kind of understand if Johnson's camp wants to say, wait a second, that's not necessarily
I get it.
the
It's just
story
that it's
here.
all soiled now. We're like literally a fortnight ago, Ben Johnson was like the belle of the ball.
I just think, though, the idea, though, that, oh, he turned us down while we were in the plane, that's not how you do things. I think it's just like these billionaires not liking looking bad and getting turned down and having like a commoner like say no, you're not good enough.
What if
commoner?
What if
that's how they look at the coaches?
Mark, what if Stugotz came out and said, I don't think Sessler had a good show today? Would you come out publicly and return fire, or would you let that sit untouched?
I think my history
unmolested.
My history suggests what I've done with Stu Gotz's initial slash at my identity, which was kind of play ball with it in a playful way. I didn't reach out to him personally. It's like he doesn't really know anything about me. But if he dug in like as a trenchant listener and thought I had a bad show, I'd have to think about that a little differently.
Right.
But then I'll go listen to his show, and I'll see what I think. I'm not trying to start a feud there. I'm sure he's a capable, nice person. Why don't ask me this question, because then I just go down that road. That's not helpful.
Sessy made it. Sessler. I mean, how about that guy? Who is that guy?
You set the table for personal chaos, and I don't need it.
The whole key is just to keep your mouth shut and let the talking continue. All right, good to know. All right, in other news, let's get on the coaching carousel. I was merely illuminating the idea that if somebody comes after you,
I know, but you know how I am. I'll just walk right into the lion's den on those situations.
That's all Ben did. Ben was like, "Whoa, you're making me look bad. I'm still going to get a job down the line. I'm not going to stand for this. We have agents. You could leak something. Oh, you should leak something.
I will try that.
That's perfect, because then you don't have to be out front, but
beep
it
this
just
out
leaks
because
out.
I'll just do it on the slide before we get to Vegas.
Let's get involved with some media shenanigans.
Okay.
That would be fun. Right here, there's this article I was about to click on, but I didn't, Greg, that connects with you. I would feel in a personal way. Headline, Mike Florio rips Adam Schefter's irresponsible reporting as he reveals broken friendship.
Whoa.
Let's get...
I got to admit, I'd click.
I know, I'm going to, but get Rosenthal to leak a couple things. Get Rosie leaking.
I mean, I thought Greg...
Leaking like an old Buick. Let's start a fire. All right. In other news, yes, let's spin the carousel. Here we go. Saints hire Klint Kubiak as OC. Raiders hire Luke Getsy as their OC after Kliff says, I gone. Liam Cohen, he's the Bucs OC. The Patriots hire Alex Van Pelt as OC. Steve Belichick, one time thought to be a potential heir to the throne in New England. He gone. He goes to Washington to be their DC, so he's going off on his own now. The Dolphins hire Ravens assistant Anthony Weaver as their DC. The Seahawks, there's a guy that's bounced around. In fact, he was in our building this past season, Leslie Frazier. I never saw him once, by the way.
I did. You know what's funny?
Never once.
Down in the locker
now he's
room,
gone.
Down in the locker room, I saw him having a very hushed conversation with one member of our media team, and I was thinking something's going on there, and then bang, this happened.
He is now the assistant head coach of the Seahawks. So that's cool. And there you go. Anything on those appointments, fellas?
I would say one thing. I know Liam Cohen has been a kind of hot and cold guy. He was with Kentucky, but he was Baker Mayfield's offensive coordinator when Mayfield was with the Rams and executed the Raiders after that 2-day stay with the Rams. And so I wonder if that helps or hurts or what. He knows Baker Mayfield.
I think it helped, but he is one of the only guys that's kind of come into working with McVay, and then McVay kind of lets go very quickly. Getsy felt like a little bit of a backup choice. He loved Justin Fields, so you do wonder, is there a connection there that the Raiders might go get Justin Fields? And then Alex Van Pelt just feels like the Patriots are just kind of getting scraps here. Eric Bieniemy doesn't have a job either right now. That would have been a totally different direction for instance, the Patriots to go, or even the Saints. Klint Kubiak, just because of the last name, you assume is going to be good, but you don't really know.
Good point about Bieniemy. I admire his decision he made, because he wanted to try to ascend and eventually get a head coaching job. So he left the nest in Kansas City, which was a nice nest to be in. But now what can backfire is you end up on a coaching staff where it doesn't work out, and now he's floating.
He could always go back, though. And it's crazy to think Mike McDonald gets hired as a head coach, right? 3 of his assistants are now defensive coordinators. That's outrageous for one offseason.
Pretty good.
So Weaver is in Miami, right? Denard Wilson is in Tennessee, and then Connor Orr's buddy, Zach, is taking over in Baltimore.
Also a reminder that the NFL is painfully unoriginal. Right. Everyone just copies each other. And this year, it's we want the Ravens defense. All right.
A quickly developing tree.
Finally in the news, it is time, Greg, to say so long to really one of your all-time favorites. Before Geno Smith, it was Teddy Bridgewater who was your guy, and he has announced after a final year of holding a clipboard in Detroit that he is retiring from professional football. He's going into coaching at the high school level. So never again, Greg, can you tell us that Teddy Bridgewater would be a great sign for a team looking for a quarterback?
Well,
never again.
What a way to pitch it.
Says you.
No, okay, we can take him out of the high school coaching game.
I will miss what a career he's had. Sean Payton said to Peter King in Monday Morning Quarterback this year that he was an all-time leader, and that those kids were lucky. That he was like Ferris Bueller, he compared it to. Didn't matter where he goes, everyone follows Teddy Bridgewater, one of the best leaders he's ever been around.
Well, you never heard Mark or I ever disputing his character.
Not at all.
That's for damn sure. What he came back from, and in general,
solid career,
a good guy.
Solid career. But
solid is as far as you can go in terms of the career, though. Like, to be fair, Greg, right? He's 33 and 32.
I would say a good career. I mean, better than the average first-round draft.
You gotta get to Baldy.
Yeah, better than the average first-round draft pick, considering the injury. That's pretty good.
All right, that's a certain bar. You butter knife that one a little bit, but yes. And it's a shame what the injury and how that impacted the trajectory of his career. I still remember doing that show. It was at the end of the summer, and it was like, oh my God. All right, here we go. Let's welcome in, now it's official. Now we're going to turn our attention to the big game. And Super Bowl 58 coming up. Who do you want to talk to when you want to get into the X's and O's and what makes these teams tick? Well, of course, you pick up the phone and you ask for Brian Baldinger, and Baldy was there for us. Here's a conversation that we had. Welcome back. Our next guest is, listen, he's in the Hall of Fame for guests for Around the NFL. One of our very favorites. No one tape dogs quite like Brian Baldinger. And now we welcome back to ATN, Baldy. What's up, bud?
Well, nice to join you guys. Thanks for the invitation. We're at the finish line. We're counting down days here, like 10 days left until this thing's going to come to a close. Everybody I know, most of the people I know, I should say, are like, they're sad that there's just one game left and there's not going to be anything after Super Bowl Sunday for a while. So, let's soak it all up right now.
Are there weird parallels? Because once you hit off season, Baldy, and you're doing your tropical vacations and you got the women everywhere around you, in some ways there's a parallel here, but instead of women all around you, you're doing podcasts with doughy, pale whites such as ourselves.
That's true. So whoever wants to, invite me in and talk about this great American game of ours, like I try to make the time. I never really get tired of doing it because it's just so interesting on so many different levels. But yes, when it's over, like I always say, like the only thing better than working is not working. So, if I'm diving with reef sharks in Belize 2 weeks from today, like I'm not gonna miss any of this, but while I'm here, I'm going to give it everything I got.
All right, let's get into the game then. The game, because I know, and Baldy, you heard it, and maybe you felt the same way too. The way Championship Sunday set up, there was this idea that Super Bowl Sunday could be really unique. And then instead what we get is Chiefs-Niners, which from one point of view is a little redundant, but from another, I mean, doesn't this feel like we're set up for, you can never guarantee classics or games that are going to go down to the wire, but you look at these teams, you see them as pretty even?
Yeah, I do. I see them pretty even. You can pitch a case for both teams. It's at this stage of this dynasty that the Chiefs are in the middle of. It's kind of hard to root against or just think that anybody has a chance against Mahomes and Andy Reid and Spags and Travis Kelce. Like, it just seems hard that anybody's going to beat them. But if there's one team that is set up that can do it, that has the coaching, the personnel, the talent, like it's San Francisco. And so I feel like we got a good matchup, but I think any one of the four, we could literally, without even thinking, draw up 20 storylines. And we could just like feed off of those storylines that would just be there. Obviously, if Detroit was here and said, we'd have a field day. Just, see him another shot at Barry Sanders, on the sideline, just doing anything. Just being Barry Sanders is fun.
Or Big Sean.
But this is what we got. So I think it's fascinating, and it's repeat. And can this kid at quarterback named Brock Purdy that nobody seems to really want to respect at this stage, can he rise up and slay? Can he slay Mahomes here? And like all those things are out there. It's going to be fantastic.
Baldy, you have called this week Brock Purdy. You titled, and I love this, the silent assassin. And there is this discourse, and it's been going on all year. And last year, it's like, it's too good to be true because of his draft stock, where he came from. It's simply he's supported by the team around him. But it's clear that you see something else. So for the people out there that believe in Brock Purdy, what is it you see? Why is he the silent assassin?
Because, first of all, he plays the game with no fear. And you can put up any bad play that he's had. We've seen a few of them, especially down the stretch. It never affects him in the next series. Like, he can flush it the way you have to. And he doesn't need a psychiatrist on the sideline to get him out of any kind of a funk. He doesn't go into a funk. Like, and then he can make every single throw. You could say, like, they love to attack the middle of the field. That's what Shanahan does. That's what Mike Martz did with Kurt Warner. They attack the middle of the field. The middle of the field is dangerous. Balls get tipped, balls get intercepted. You have to layer throws in the middle of the field. You have to layer them over linebackers and dropping defensive linemen sometimes. All that stuff. And yet he makes those throws routine. He made a throw to Deebo Samuel. We all saw it at the start of the third quarter. And, like, he just hit his fifth step and let it rip. Like, the way you have to throw it with no fear, right in the middle of a four-man zone. Detroit's sitting there, and he hit Deebo like it was T-ball. He just took it right off the tee and just kept going. And, that sort of ability to do that. I mean, I didn't think Jimmy Garoppolo could do that with regularity the way this kid does. And so I just think whatever they ask him to do, he can do. And he's got to scramble for 52 yards on 3 runs in the second half, or whether he's got to, roll out of the pocket and avoid pressure, he does that. And whether he's got to understand the situation where just get rid of the ball is better and go to the next down, he does that. And then, somebody has to feed all of these talented players that the 49ers have. And he feeds them all. They're all having good seasons. All of them. None of them are not eating and not feeding off of this. And so it starts with him.
Yeah, I do want to get to the 49ers defense, which to me is so different than the last time these teams played in the Super Bowl. While we're on Brock, just thinking of this matchup with Spagnuolo and the Chiefs defense, just how do you think Purdy and Shanahan will react to all the different looks that Spagnuolo throws at him? Because Lamar Jackson obviously didn't handle that very well. And one thing we've seen with this Chiefs defense, also different than the 4 or 5 years ago, is, man, they can change a lot throughout a game, throughout a week to week, throughout a series. They just never show you the same thing twice. How do you think like Purdy and Shanahan deal with that?
I remember one time, I'll answer your question, Greg, but I remember one time Spags was on Jim Johnson's staff in Philly, and they went up to play Tom Brady and the Patriots. And to your point about versatility and changing fronts and all that stuff, literally Jim Johnson gave Brady a different defense each quarter. He started because they knew he would adjust at halftime. He goes, we can't wait to halftime to change. So literally Jim Johnson came up with this idea. Let's give him 4 different defenses. We'll play a different one each quarter, and let's see if Brady and the Patriots adjust. So, I mean, even in the playoffs now, Spags played a totally different defense against Buffalo in the playoffs than he did week 14. And so last week he said, well, we'll play 3 big linebackers. We'll play Bolton and Tranquil and Chanel, and we'll stuff the run. But we'll leave our corners exposed. And if Lamar could beat, L'Jarius or, Trent or Jalen or Joshua, whoever out there, then they beat him. And they couldn't beat him. They got 1 deep ball down the field and 1 for a touchdown on a scramble drill. Other than that, like, they were 0 for 8 on some of those deep shots. So I think Spags will start by saying, okay, McCaffrey is the guy you got to stop. Like, I feel like, and how are they going to do that? What front are they going to play? They're minus Nadi. They're minus Amenahu. They're down numbers. Like, what is going to be their method to basically stopping McCaffrey from getting going and discouraging Shanahan from just feeding him the way they have all year long? So I mean, that's just one take, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing is, they had the 6 rookies a year ago. They all got in the field. They started 4 rookies in the Super Bowl. Like, all these kids now are very experienced players. And, I saw this T-shirt down the field in Baltimore the other day. Spags hates it, but they all have a T-shirt that says, "In Spags we trust." And I really feel like they're in the classroom and they all want to be in the front row. They all were like, "What's he going to do this week? How are we going to do this? What's the plan?" And I think he's just got them all buying in right now to whatever that plan is.
I have an idea, by the way, because everybody knows one of Baldy's greatest hits is, and what he regularly, it goes off on social media and viral, is the hashtag Baldy's breakdowns. We have some very talented people that listen to this show in terms of artistic merit. Can we get someone in the vein of the "In Spags We Trust," but in Baldy we trust, and then make sure he gets the laser eyes also, study like tape dogging? If we can get some type of T-shirt design, maybe we can make a T-shirt.
Let's just get the clicker.
Yeah,
Get the clicker involved. Good note.
Actually, you know what? I have a great idea, Baldy. Can we get like an action shot of you with the clicker? We'll screen grab it, and people could use that as the basis for the T-shirt. That would be very helpful.
Absolutely, we'll get that done.
All right, now my question to you: back to the game. We're always trying to build the Baldy brand because it can always be bigger. The Kansas City offense is a subject of fascination to me and confusion, quite frankly, based on how much they struggle. I'm just thinking about where they were Christmas Day and that horrific performance against the Raiders. And then once they get to the playoffs, they turn it on. And now here they are in the Super Bowl. And they took care of business against Miami in the cold in the first round. It was a pretty vintage performance against the Bills in divisional play. The initial game script was flawless in the AFC title game, 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives, and then things obviously dried up a little bit for them. When you look at the team that went to the Super Bowl against the Eagles last year and the team now that's going to go to the Super Bowl against the 49ers, do you think they have another vintage performance in them against the San Francisco defense, or is this who more or less the Chiefs are this year, where they do enough, grind it out, and it's Spags and the D that takes things home? Like, is there a huge game left in the tank for this team and this core?
Oh, for sure. I remember I had Andy Reid on my podcast like mid-season, and I've known Andy since he came to Philadelphia in 1999. So I told him, I said, Big Red, for the first time since I've known you, I'm talking more about your defense than your offense. And he didn't disagree. He didn't disagree with it, the way they were kind of struggling. Quite frankly, I feel like they're bored during the regular season. They look bored sometimes. It's just because they know what it's all about. They know all that matters is how you play in January and February. And I feel like, and some of them have just been through it for so long. Now, maybe Creed Humphrey doesn't feel that way, or Trey Smith, but I feel, and Rashee Rice, but to a certain extent, there is a little bit of fatigue that we got to get through this thing to when it really counts. And so now the ball doesn't hit the ground when it goes to Travis Kelce. It hit the ground a bunch, during the regular season. The ball didn't hit the ground. Like, the game plan was brilliant. Like if we had a stopwatch and how long the ball was in Mahomes' hands for most of his throws, it was less than a second and a half. Like, because they know Ravens are his own defense. They're just sitting there waiting. But they'll take all the 4-yard throws that you can get, and then we'll turn those 4-yard throws into 4 yards or 6 or maybe 8 yards, and we'll just stay on schedule. We'll march, and that's what they did. Baltimore tightened things up in the second half. They didn't get much. But I think to answer your question, yeah, I think they have another vintage performance left in them.
I thought you had an interesting tweet because you'd have a perspective that, if you, outside of youth sports, you don't know what's happening with a lot of these teams when they're not on the field playing. You talked about the way that the Chiefs pregame warm-up, how they practice in general, that there's something about them that stands out to you. And it's like, whether they were bored or not, they're very consistent. And like, is that different than the Niners to you? Is that different than other teams in general?
I've watched Brock Purdy warm up. He's kind of an amazing guy in warm-ups because you could literally go out there to Brock Purdy in pregame warm-ups and you could ask him about that ice cream shop in Ames, Iowa, and what his favorite flavor was. And he's giving you an answer, But this routine of the Chiefs looks different to me. It looks very Peyton Manning-like. from the moment that Mahomes takes the field, it's like I've done, I don't know, since Mahomes has been, I've probably done 20 Chief games for national radio over the 7 years. Like literally his routine, it doesn't matter if it's 25 below zero, like a couple weeks ago, or if it was Sunday in a misty rain. He comes out in his warm-ups 3 hours before kickoff. He sits on a bench. He talks to the trainers. He talks to equipment guys. And then about an hour and a half before kickoff, he starts winding that arm up. And literally, you could take that game versus the game against Buffalo versus the game on week 2 against Jacksonville. It's almost identical. And he must get at least 100 throws in. And I just think, like the throw, obviously, to Kelsey for the touchdown against Kyle Hamilton, we've all watched it. It's an amazing throw. But I felt like he threw that with just the exact same amount of ease as what you just showed right there in that throw to Travis Kelsey. It feels like it isn't anything different in the mechanics or how he throws it or anything else in that pregame warm-up versus the game. And I don't know that other guys that warm up treat it the same way.
My favorite warm-up I ever saw, and we don't get on the field anymore at the Super Bowls, was Colin Kaepernick just throwing fastballs as fast as he humanly could, like 40 straight times. I don't know what the purpose of that was, but it was very exciting to watch before that Super Bowl. Last one I have for you, Baldy, just watching these last 3 games from the 49ers that mattered for them, the Ravens game and then these 2 playoff games. I'm just struck with, and you know what you're seeing better on tape than any of us do. But what I'm seeing is kind of shocking to me, is a team that's like maybe not that physical, that if you only watched these 3 weeks, you would say for those 3 weeks, both playoff games, the Ravens games, they got pushed around a little and they didn't play very well. And that's very surprising to me. I know they have some weak spots, but they also have some great players. Do you think the Chiefs offense could out-tough this 49ers defense?
Definitely. I mean, the only guy that looked like he played good on Sunday was Bosa. To me, I didn't think Armstead, Hargrave, Givens, Chase, I didn't think any of them played good.
Surprising.
I didn't think they had good run fits in the run game. I mean, Fred Warner's going this way, and there's, Oren Burks is going this way, and like they're leaving the middle open for David Montgomery. I'm like, that's not good defense. And I thought they got pushed around. I didn't think the effort was great. It wasn't championship effort by a number of players. And so while Fred Warner does cover up some of the mistakes because of how fast he plays and how aggressive he is, along with Dre Greenlaw, I didn't see a great defense on Sunday. And so the one thing the Chiefs have leaned on, though, is they've become a good power running football team. Even with, Nick Allegretti in at left guard, they still did a good job of pushing Baltimore around at times on Sunday. And Pacheco got some good runs. And I feel like they've leaned on that power run game a little bit. Donovan Smith's a better run blocker than Wan'Dale Morris. So, I mean, I just think if they need to, they'll lean on it. And I think based on what we just saw, why wouldn't you?
All right. Brian Baldinger, who you, of course, can check. He's all over social media at Baldy NFL. He's got a couple of podcasts, All City Sports and on Odyssey. Check those out.
You have a daily podcast, Baldy? Like, how do you have time for 2 daily podcasts?
2 daily podcasts.
People
All
should
City
check that out,
and
please.
The Best Football Show with Brian Baldinger.
Baldy
2 daily
doesn't-
podcasts for 2 different networks.
The room that he's sitting
Greg,
in.
honestly, I'm just a football whore. And whoever wants to pay me a check, like I'm going to work for him. Like,
you know what? I like that.
I've never read one of my contracts ever. I'm just like, people want me, you got me.
You're normalizing football promiscuity, and I think that's healthy. By the way, just because I like to live vicariously through you, so once the season's over and you're going to Belize, are you more a sniping some mako sharks in the crow's nest with bikini babes around you, or are you more like swimming with the dolphins with the bikini babes around you? Like, where do you go on that?
Well, I like both species. Actually, all 3 species. So, I mean, I'm a fan of all of it, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I could elaborate, but I think I'll just leave it right there.
I think everybody knows where Baldy's coming. And finally, Eric, can we go to full screen on Baldy? Baldy, it's time to get out the clicker. We're going to get the screenshot that our talented people. Let's go with that. Let's make sure it's in the shot.
There we go.
You want to do some type of take us back to your playing days. You're focused and intense.
Well, here we go. let's just take a look right here at Trent Williams and his backside cutoff block. And nobody can emulate this. Nobody knows how to do it. It's strictly the Trent Williams block, how he could just take somebody's head and just ram it right into the ground, and McCaffrey cut right off him like that. It's just a beautiful piece of film right there.
Beautiful.
Right. And all of the proceeds of this T-shirt will go to repopulate the Mako shark population in the ocean.
There's way too many sharks that aren't making it.
All right, Baldy, thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate the time. You're
Anytime,
such a
guys.
busy man this time of year, and we really do appreciate you doing this with us. Until next time.
Thanks, Baldy.
Thank
See
you.
you guys.
All right, there he goes, Baldy. We spoke with him late last week. He's a very busy guy, as we alluded to, and he gave us some time. Really happy to talk with him and dig into this game, which is going to be so great. And I'm really excited about this. Not in Spags we trust, in Baldy we trust. Merch. People are always asking about the merch, Mark, and I feel like this one could be a big time winner.
He is the perfect candidate for a wide variety of creative input from people, listeners that see the different aspects to Baldy. There was one thing about him. Like, I think we've come into this Super Bowl week a little bit like, oh, it's Niners, Chiefs again. Like, is it the same old thing? Well, it's obviously not, but he elevates your interest in any matchup. And whether it's the merch, it's the game itself, there's only one Baldy.
Cool. And just to give you an idea of like what you're up against, Big Funk, who's not in today, but here is a design that he put together. You can check this out on the Fast Channel. Baldy's breakdowns. That's what we're looking for. If you are a creative person and you want to design a T-shirt around Baldy and his greatness, and look at that finger in the shot, you got to get the pinky in the shot. Eric, is that, as someone that has a thumb issue, to see the pinky askew like that? Are you guys part of a club that no one talks about?
I did think about it when we were recording that interview. I was like, there are a handful of people here and several people with faulty digits. I mean,
his came on the battlefield of the gridiron. How did you hurt your finger again?
The battlefield of the kitchen.
I don't remember.
Slicing potatoes.
Okay, it's not the same origin story.
Also, Eric, calling it a faulty digit, I don't believe you have a faulty. Well, sometimes when you're slow on the hit, it is a little faulty. Actually, I agree with you.
It's hard picking up things sometimes. That little extra, you need that little extra.
It's too real.
It's weird, yeah.
It's too real. All right.
I am sure we're going to end our 11-year strikeout-filled attempts at making merch now. And it's somehow going to be about Baldy.
Right, and he gets all the money. All right, that was a action-packed full show on Monday before we get on the plane, and so we gave you a lot to chew on. And just want to, before we go, one more thing, and we mentioned Chris at the top of the show, and again, 3 years without him, and it's hard to believe. We've been at this company for so long now, and you get to know people on a personal level beyond just professional, and we were shocked to learn yesterday that Larry Campbell, who known by everyone in the office here as LC, who's just like a great dude and someone that was always friendly and great at his job. He passed away suddenly this past week. So really a pall and a gray and rainy time in Los Angeles, that's hanging over this building right now, because Larry was a mainstay in that newsroom and in terms of our NFL Network team. So we lose Larry, and we really send our thoughts and our prayers out to his family and friends.
Yeah, it's a big loss. Such a kind soul, such a kind guy, and a big part of when we were first going on the network, working with him on all those old NFL Now hits and whatever the name of it, around the league, when it was around the league, then around the NFL.
Right.
And just a great guy. He will be missed. It's really sad.
It's like he was a real supporter of what we were trying to do. But I also know that, particularly Wes down in Marina Del Rey would see Larry out a lot, and they had a special friendship. And it's like someone that you just saw a week ago, and then you find out, and it's terrible these days. You find out over text that this person is gone, and it's like it brings up a lot of stuff for all of us. And it's like he was a genuinely kind, fun person, and there's really no one like him, and it's just another loss.
And I implore you, because I say it not in jest, because I mean it, but when Steve Weish is on the show, I call him the conscience of the newsroom. Check out on his feed, his Twitter feed, Andrew and Steve talking about Larry. because he can say it more eloquently than any of us. We'll be in Las Vegas in 2 days. Join us for another ride to the Super Bowl. Till then, heed the call.